Hi everyone, this is Isa Teese. Inspiration versus desperation. These are two very, very important words, and you are most likely living your life from one of these two places. Rarely is anyone in between. Inspiration. You know that feeling when you just feel like, yes, I'm inspired. I can't help myself. I've got to do this. I want to do this. I am on it. That feeling that you can't not do it and things just flow and suddenly you're hearing things and you're knowing things and you've just got this passion rolling and you're motivated and everything just seems to be working. That's inspiration. Desperation? Now you may feel that very strong energy, but if you look underneath that, what you will discover is there's a fear-driven reason that it is happening the way it's happening. In other words, you're doing what you're doing because there's some kind of fear. So what happens when we live that way? Well, actually, before I tell you about results of that, let me tell you a little bit more about desperation. Desperation is where most people are living. Desperation is, oh my God, I've got to get this done. Oh my gosh, if I don't do this, and if you take the time, and this is a real question to ask yourself, what happens if I don't get this done? And you will suddenly recognize what's happening under there. Well, I won't get paid. She'll be mad at me. He won't like me. My kids won't get schooling. I won't get to work on time. The garbage won't get out on time. Whatever it is. But if you look underneath, there is some kind of negative payoff which doesn't feel good. So that means that we're doing what we're doing primarily because we feel like we should. Never ever should on yourself. From this day forward, never ever should on yourself. You do everything you do by choice. You choose what it is that you do. And when you live from that place, what occurs? What occurs is that you feel empowered. What occurs is you can no longer be victim. You can move into a place of mastery because choice is always about mastery. So when you are doing anything, just ask yourself, what place am I in? How do I feel about this? Be in touch with yourself because that's going to make an amazing difference in the way you do what it is that you do. Now, here's something that occurs from desperation as well. When you're doing desperation, what occurs is that you are feeling like the pressure is very intense. And if you are under that kind of intense pressure, what happens? Pretty much things don't flow very well because you're all convoluted internally and in your body and feeling is there. But when you're in inspiration, what occurs? Oh, I'm very excited about doing this. I'm on it. It's flowing. I'm really loving what I'm doing. Now here's the thing that happens. The mind starts telling you, I must do this. And therefore, we start getting in that desperate state instead of making decisions based on what arises naturally. So most decisions are made out of desperation. Logic, sometimes you might call it. And not that logic has to be desperate. It doesn't. But logic is frequently from a place of, I'm afraid if I don't do it, this is going to happen. So if you wake up in the morning and you go to your desk, or you go to your computer and you go, what am I going to do today? Well, check in. What do you feel like doing? And I know some of you are going, I feel like going to the beach. I feel like going for a hike. I feel like doing this or doing that. Okay, I know that that's partly there. And if that's up for you, what would happen if you do that? What kind of experience would occur in your life if you actually realized that maybe you need some time off? Maybe you need to do things a little bit differently than you've been doing them. Are you getting that there's a message here? Now, I've gone through times where I really didn't know exactly what was next for me, and it was very hard for me because what I wanted to do was just pick something. I just wanted to do something because I couldn't stand just being quiet and allowing the next thing to arise. I have a very good friend who just doesn't do anything unless it is done through what's the word I'm looking for? It emerges up. It comes from within, and it's like, this is what it is that I am now doing. This is what it is that I feel. It's not about, I have to do that. And I have had this experience. I'll share a story with you. One time, way back in the 80s, I was going through so much transformation. Most of you, I've talked about it before. I had a really serious car accident in the early 80s. And after that, my whole life changed. And I was at a place where I knew that it was no longer working for me to work in traditional medicine anymore. And it also wasn't working for me to be in real estate the way that I had been. So I was really desiring to go into coaching and supporting people. And at that time I was I was really working on a lot of intuition with people as I was helping them. And this was a very scary thing. And I'm not suggesting that you necessarily do this, but it's what I was up against, because I was at this inspiration-desperation point. I felt desperate to start making money to help the relationship. This was a marriage that I had before Raphael. And so we were running out of money. And in fact, our house went into foreclosure. And the person I was married to was just so not happy with me. He said, you have to go get a job. You've got to do this. You've got to support what's going on. And I really wanted to intellectually, but I couldn't. I just could not go there. I was waiting for the inspiration of what it was that was going to happen next. And for me, it was about going out and really starting the life work that I'm doing now. So I held up to what it was that I was waiting for, which was the inspiration. And we got 30 days from our house being sold on the courthouse steps. And magically, he was a real estate broker. And magically what occurred is something happened, and he ended up getting a sale that closed in like 22 days, and it created the $100,000 we needed to get our house out of foreclosure. And boom, it really worked. Well, like I said, I'm not suggesting you necessarily live on the edge, but sometimes you may find that it's just important that you follow through and you wait for that inspiration. From there, I started opening up a practice, and I started doing things very differently. I opened a bookstore and all different kinds of things. But the point is, it was very scary for me to stick with inspiration versus desperation. If I had done the desperation thing at that moment, I would have been back in the place of the round robin, the hamster wheel of life that was not working for me, which is one of the reasons that I feel like my whole car accident occurred. So I invite you to contemplate about this today, because there are challenges with inspiration. You will be up against, perhaps in varying different degrees, all that fear. And that's something that you have to make a decision for, whether you do it, whether you hang out, whether you allow yourself to feel the inspiration, it just comes from within, and it's like, yes, that's what I want. I just want that. And I'm going for it. And nothing and no one is going to stop me. And the desperation is, I know I got to do this. I just have to do it. And I don't really have any option about it. I just have to do it. And when that desperation is there, you will almost always find yourself feeling angry, upset, and kind of betrayed to yourself. So test yourself a little bit, because the challenge of desperation, you're going to have to deal with what you haven't really dealt with. Are you being true to yourself? Are you being true to what is very, very important to yourself? These choices that you make are creating next moment, next moment, next moment. Everything is happening by what it is that you're thinking, feeling, saying, and doing in each and every moment. So contemplate that. Determine for yourself what's important to you, and make your decisions based on inspiration or desperation. And when you do that, all of your life is going to be different. So just ask yourself, what am I most committed to? Today, I want to remind you that there are still a few spots left in our program, where it's going to include 3 retreats, private coaching, group coaching, and we just had someone else sign up yesterday. So the spots are becoming less. I invite you to private message me if you would like to know more about that. I would really love to be with you. So until next time, feel a hug.